According to sociologists, American society had changed dramatically over the last two generations. Statistics show that we're much less involved in our community than we used to be. And here to discuss what's it might mean for our society is sociologist David Lee. Welcome to the program. Thank you. First of all, can you summarize the issue for us? Well, as you say, Americans in the United States, they're less involved in community than we say in 1960. There is participation all around. We get together a lot less, even with friends. Can you give us some examples? Well, one statistic that comes up a lot is membership in PTA, the National Parent-Teacher Association. In the 1950s, almost half of parents with children under 18 were members of PTA. They got together, attended meetings, and raised money for children's schools. Well, membership in PTA went from 50% in the 50s to under 20% in 1995, and that's just one example. The number of people who attend other kinds of public meetings means about local affairs such as, I don't know, and brewing bus service, so crime in the neighborhood has gone down about 60%. It's like people are less interested in the community. Yes, that's what it looks like. They're less interested in political process as well. Look at newspaper readership, for example. Only about 25% of people aged 40 and under read a newspaper every day. That's contrast with 80% of older Americans. There's a big difference. It sure is. And what about the number of people that vote? That's down too, isn't it? Yeah, voting is a really very basic measure of a political participation. And voting is way down. In the turn of the century, I mean the last century, so in 1900, about 85% of eligible adults turned out to vote. In the last presidential election, less than 50% turned out. Yeah, I see the problem. But you're talking about political involvement and involvement in local organizations. But what about social lives? You mentioned we social less as well. Yes, we social less than we used to. In the 1950s, people had friends over to them often. They visited neighbors more often. Generally, people seem to have a much better social life back then we do now. That's really interesting. So we're becoming more isolated from each other. But is this such a big deal? I mean, you may say, so what? Are the kinds of social connection with the people may be important? I mean, these days we have a telephone, we have an internet. Yes, the telephone has replaced face-to-face contact a lot, but informal social connections are actually very important. Why? There's a high correlation between social connection in the community and crime, for example. The more people know one another's names in the community, the less crime there is. I suppose it makes sense. Everybody knows who you are. Yep, and people living in community with a lot of social connection tend to live longer. They have better health and they're generally happier. Wow, so I guess there is a need to make people feel more connected to the communities. But how would you do that? That's the million-dollar question. Well, one way would be encourage people to volunteer more. Volunteering is a great way to get involved in the world around you and build connection with the other people. Maybe we should also hold block party to get to know our neighbors. Absolutely, why not?